Foreign interference in Canadian elections is top of mind for MPs again this afternoon in Ottawa. The NDP is making it the subject of an opposition motion, and former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole is also speaking out. He rose in the House on a point of privilege. The CBC's Karina Roman joins us now live for more on all of this. Karina, what's the latest on the foreign interference file today?
Well, starting with Erin O'Toole, who this morning rose in the House of Commons on a point of privilege, saying his privilege as an MP was breached through a sustained campaign by China to discredit him, to undermine him and his leadership when he was leader of the Conservative Party, voter suppression. And this comes out of a CSIS briefing that he had on Friday because he was a particular target. And he says his rights as an MP's privilege was breached because the government either did not want to do anything about it or just was unable to do anything about it. So that was the first step today. Then, of course, the whole file dominated question period. Just a continuation of yesterday with the opposition calling for a public inquiry, saying that David Johnston needs to step down or be fired. You still have the fact that Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, and Yves-François Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, are declining, refusing, however you want to frame it, briefings from CSIS saying that they don't want to be silenced because if they have a top secret briefing, then they can't comment on it. But the government say, no, that's willful ignorance. You just want to not see the top secret information because then you can continue to go with your partisan attacks and your hyperbole. And so here's a bit of that exchange in question period today. Have a listen.
What he says is, there's nothing to see here, so why don't you come into a dark room and see it, and then we'll commit you to an oath of secrecy so you can walk out and tell Canadians that you can't tell them anything at all. That's effectively what he's saying. We don't need more people to keep secrets. We need more people telling the truth. Why won't he launch a public inquiry to do that?
Current leader of the opposition was Minister of Elections. Perhaps that is his approach, why he didn't do anything to fight foreign interference. That was ongoing in our elections and has been for decades. Mr. Speaker, he chose to cover his ears and not listen to intelligence officials.
Now, the government also argues that Erin O'Toole, after his briefing with CSIS, and Jenny Kwan, who is the NDP MP, who also had a CSIS briefing on Friday because she was also targeted, have been able to talk about some of what they found out in the briefing, just not, obviously the top secret information. And so, the argument there that he would be completely silenced doesn't hold water with the government. But it's not just question period. Also, we have the NDP has its opposition day today, and its motion for that is to call for the stepping down of David Johnston and then for a calling for a public inquiry. And so this is debated today and likely voted on tomorrow. The reasoning behind this, they say, is even if David Johnston isn't biased, there is an appearance, a perception of bias that is growing, which will completely undermine renewing and supporting the confidence that Canadians need in democracy and in our elections. Interesting, though, that the Conservatives are also taking aim at the NDP, even though they may support this motion, because they say that the NDP should pull its support from its agreement with the Liberals if it really cared about democracy. Jagmeet Singh disagrees. Have a listen to what he had to say.
What we're doing is we're forcing this government, with a vote, we're forcing Parliament to decide on whether or not Mr. Johnston should continue. I think that's a serious question. Given the clear appearance of bias, we are putting before Canadians that it is no longer useful to have Mr. Johnston in that position, given the clear appearance of bias. It's not going to restore confidence in the electoral system. So we're going to push for that. But I would question the approach of creating the conditions for an election or triggering an election as not serious about protecting our democracy.
Now, Singh has agreed to a briefing from CSIS to see some of these top secret documents on the condition that he can then comment on whether he agrees with the, the conclusion that David Johnston came to in that a public inquiry is not needed. So that's a bit different from his opposition counterparts.
So, Karina, where does this all go from here?
Well, we don't have a date on when Jagmeet Singh will get that briefing, so that's something to look forward to. You can expect continued pressure from the opposition for a public inquiry. In fact, the Bloc Québécois says they will bring it up every day until it happens. And you know, with Erin O'Toole, he raised this point of privilege. Now we wait for the Speaker to rule on that and see whether, as well, like what happened with Michael Chong, he does find a case for a breaching of his privilege and therefore would refer that perhaps to a committee to explore. So many more things on the horizon on this file.
Karina, thank you for this. The CBC's Karina Roman for us in Ottawa.